think we're Mike Tyson. So I don't want to win after 12 rounds. I want to win a knockout.
And you never once thought about giving up?
No, it's
during
horrible.
that time.
I thought about it every single day. I want to build a $100 billion company. So I think I never told the story because nobody ever asked. But
Nice.
Lui è Christian Ecker, CEO e co-founder di Trade Republic, una delle start-up che valgono di più in Europa. Ha raccolto 1,3 miliardi, gestisce più di 100 miliardi di risparmi e ha fatto tutto questo partendo da un paesino tedesco da neanche 2000 abitanti. Noi di Chapeau lo abbiamo incontrato per capire esattamente come ha fatto a fondare una startup da 5,3 miliardi, sfiorando il fallimento per 4 anni. Come è passato da ricevere 200 no a raccogliere miliardi dai VC più importanti al mondo. E soprattutto tutti i momenti dove ha pensato di non farcela.
I grew up in a very small town in Western Germany. It's like a farming town, 2,000 people. I wouldn't know what I want to do in my life, but I would know that I want to go out of this, right? Even my household was the last one to get internet in the village. So I went to Munich to study philosophy. I was somewhat interested in it. My mother was very unhappy about this choice, obviously. The first 6-12 months were really hard because I wouldn't know anybody. I got a state-funded scholarship, so basically it was always broke. There was no money, right? But in hindsight, it was the best. And then I started philosophy, and I recognized at some point that that's the fastest way of becoming a very well-educated taxi driver, right?
Quindi dopo la laurea in filosofia a Monaco si appassiona di finanza e trova uno stage in investment banking in Deutsche Bank, che in Italia sarebbe una cosa assurda, ma che in realtà è abbastanza normale in paesi come Germania e Inghilterra. Da lì riesce a entrare in Bank of America come investment banker. Quindi era pronto per una delle carriere più prestigiose e pagate al mondo. Ma dopo un anno si licenzia e fonda una startup. Perché?
I knew I could be happy without money because my entire life I had been without, right? So that was never important for me. Second, I reckoned I can always go back to investment banking. And if I don't try, I will never try it. So it felt very similar than going to Munich and study philosophy back in the days.
And how do you know it was the right time to do so?
Oh, you never know it's the right time, right? Okay. So I never had a master plan or game plan, right? And I think just end of 2014, I was staffed on the IPO, the going public of a company called Rocket Internet. It's like a German startup incubator. They brought us
the incubator.
Yes, it was the only internet company we had in Germany back in the days. And I think they brought us companies like HelloFresh or Zalando. And so they were going public. And as an investment banker and in German, I was staffed on that project to work there. And that year I went to Berlin to meet them. And I had like a suit, cufflinks, a tie, leather shoes. And it was hot summer. And I was going there to pitch them. And all of a sudden there was like a building like this in a Berlin backyard. And there were people in shorts and t-shirts talking very fast, moving very fast. And then I got this one meeting. It's actually a true story. It's not romanticized. It was the equity story about their food delivery business in Asia, which was a big thing for them back in the days. And then this guy at 2015 told me, look, Jakarta doesn't have street names and house numbers. So how can we deliver food in Jakarta? Because we can triangulate your position with the mobile phone data in Jakarta. Now today is like table stakes, but 2015 was like mind-blowing for me that this is possible. And I remember in that meeting and then driving home, flying back to Frankfurt that evening, I thought to myself, oh my God, that's the future. Like young people, hustling people, like technological people, and they're going to eat everything alive, and I'm going to do the past. And that's when I really fell in love with technology, and before that I had actually no clue about startups at all.
Quindi si innamora delle startup entrando in contatto con Rocket Internet, il colosso tedesco da cui sono partite decine di startup leggendarie. Ma se fino a quel momento non aveva neanche idea di che cosa fosse una startup, qual era il suo sogno da bambino?
So I think I never told the story because nobody ever asked, but nice. My father was a used car dealsman, right? So he would repair cars. And my sister's 8 years older than me, and she married a guy from my same village who ended up at Mercedes-Benz being an engineer. So it was I was pretty obsessed with cars because of my father, and so it was clear that I wanted to do the same. So when I was like in 12th grade, 16, 17 years old, I applied for all the engineering jobs in Germany for dual student studies. So basically you go to Mercedes-Benz, you work with them, you study. And I actually got a lot of offers from Mercedes, from Porsche, whatever. And that was my life dream, I thought, was 16, 17. And then I got this contract and it laid basically on my small desk at home. And then I imagined myself moving to Stuttgart, living there, you know, like living the life basically of my sister and all that. And I couldn't. And then I confessed that I don't want to do this and wanted to study philosophy, and I could imagine that this broke a lot of hopes.
Quindi i suoi volevano che andassi a lavorare in Mercedes, ma lui va a studiare filosofia. Poi lavora in finanza per un anno e nel 2015 fonda Trade Republic.
Half of it is luck. right? So half of it that I'm privileged to sit here today is pure luck, right timing, whatever it is, right? You can easily tell my story very differently, and it sounds like a complete failure, right? Studies philosophy, ends up to being a taxi driver, founded a startup nobody wants, right? Trade Republic was the first 5 years very unsuccessful. And so I remember we were always doing, in Berlin, we got this park, it's called Tiergarten, and then at night we had an office there, we always wander through the Tiergarten and talk. And in the third or fourth year we're going through there, basically we discussed the option of failing, because we wouldn't raise money, everything was going very slow, and then basically what happens to our lives is we fail, right? And then Thomas, my co-founder, said, well, I'm an engineer, I'm just going to go to another company, become CTO, right? Like a small startup. And then I think that evening I thought, well, now to go back to investment banking, not so easy. Right? After 3 years doing on paper nothing, people don't take you back so easy. So that's the first time I was really a bit fearful.
And you never once thought about giving up?
No, it's
during
horrible.
that time.
I thought about it every single day.
Ah, okay, you did.
Of course.
Okay.
You think about it every single day, right? All of your friends, your family, right? They all come to you saying, what are you doing? This is so stupid, right? Like even friends you think hate you, all of a sudden come to you and say, like, don't do this. Don't do this, right? Ex-colleagues are reaching out. People give you for dinner. You get these intervention meetings, right? For 3 years, it's really hard.
I primi 4 anni sono un massacro, lavora come un matto, nessun investitore gli dà €1, non si paga lo stipendio per 2 anni e i suoi amici lo implorano di ritornare a lavorare. Oggi però Trade Republic è la piattaforma di risparmio e investimento più grande d'Europa. 100 miliardi di euro in gestione, 8 milioni di clienti e 600 dipendenti. Quindi esattamente come ha fatto ad arrivarci?
We knew to do this, we need a banking license and we need a lot of technological infrastructure. Both we couldn't get without money. So we knew to get investors, we need to build something people use. And so back in the days, we bought a handful of iPads with our own money and we built an app. And that app was a competition for students, like a trading game. And we launched this, just Thomas and myself, and Marco, our third co-founder, who's actually from Italy.
Oh, no way.
He's from Rome, yeah. He studied in Munich. We met him on a party, like it goes, right? And in the party, he said, it's a shitty idea. I don't want to do it. And then 3 days later came knocking on our door. And we launched it. And I think within 2 weeks, we had 15,000 people using the trading competition. That made me wonder whether there's something. It cannot be bollocks. Now, then after that, it took 4.5 years to go live, which if I would have known back then, I would have never done it.
But those 4.5 years, the first 3, maybe 3.5, you bootstrapped the whole thing. So how was it for you to really go from 0 to 1?
It was Christmas 2015 and Thomas went on hackathons to just, win some money for himself and just have some fun because he's a great computer engineer. And then all of a sudden he called me, it was like literally a week before Christmas, that he won the hackathon of Commerzbank, right? The second largest bank. And then they offer us a place in their startup garage.
Which is some sort of incubator?
Incubator,
Okay,
right.
gotcha.
Without money.
okay.
You just get an office.
Okay.
And so we had a long debate whether you want to start incubated by your main competitor. And we said yes. And so I just moved to Munich together with my girlfriend. And then I said, well, I need to pack my bags and move to Hamburg. And so then I moved with Thomas to Hamburg to move into the startup garage. Then for 1 year, we were working with them and they wanted to fund the business. They gave us some money. We hired some people. And then on one Sunday evening, they told us to basically leave. And we couldn't keep the money and all of it. It took basically everything. And then on that Sunday, we fired 7 people, which we hired. And that is like end or mid of 2016. And because we've been with Commerzbank, we've seen a bank from the inside, we recognized the fact that what they are doing, we could do, right? So because we understood the technical systems much better and all of that. So we laid off the people, moved to Berlin from Hamburg and lived in Airbnbs for 1.5 years. And then that was the hardest time because we knew we could do it. Nobody would give us money because all the investors said, well, you want to build a broker in Germany, which is impossible because Germans will never invest, right? And then there's N26. So even if you make it N26 Revolut, they will have copied you and it's going to be possible.
Which sounds fair.
Right? It was all reasonable arguments, right? But we kept on going milestone to milestone for 2 years and then found one guy who was an angel investor in Düsseldorf, Germany. And he came from the brokerage sphere and he understood what we were doing. And back against the wall, because we had no other option, he basically said to us, well, I'm going to buy 75% of the company for 600,000 euros.
Wow.
And so we then sold the majority of the company for 600,000 euros to this guy. He made a fortune out of it by now.
I imagine.
No, but I'm telling you this because I think many people tell you that they are mission driven. But for 5 years or 4.5 years, we were A, putting our personal money where our mouth is because we bootstrapped a lot of it. And B, we were willing to sell the majority of the company for it. So we walked the talk. But again, if I would have known back then that this is those 4.5 years and this is what it takes, I would have likely not done it.
But it's crazy though, the 75% thing. Did you have any doubts at that point?
100%. It was horrible. Yeah, we didn't sleep a lot. It was like really horrible. No, because you can imagine, right? You were sitting each evening in your Airbnb back then and just discussing back and forth, Should we do it? Should we not do it? We wouldn't have a lawyer because we couldn't afford a lawyer, so we signed whatever contract he gave us, which was a horrible contract in hindsight. But I mean, as we say in Germany, the ending tells the story, right? So now we're very happy.
Infatti pian piano le cose iniziano a girare. Coi pochi soldi che riescono a raccogliere acquisiscono sempre più clienti, diventano una vera e propria banca e iniziano ad arrivare le prime chiamate dalla Silicon Valley.
I think 2019, we're talking pre-COVID, the company was doing very well. We just raised our Series A round led by creare, which is the first investor in Spotify. So they were kind of a legend already. And 2019 went well with numbers. We get like 100,000 customers the first year. And then your name is somewhat shared and all of a sudden you get these calls from Silicon Valley. And then I was flying over beginning of 2020 to meet, I guess, almost all VCs you know, right? The big ones. And then we've been very privileged to get an offer from both Excel and then Founders Fund, which is the fund by Peter Thiel. And so for Founders Fund to make a deal of that size, because already was a big deal for them as well, you need to meet Peter for breakfast. So I needed to prolong my stay, and then I flew over to Los Angeles to have breakfast with him on a Sunday morning. And I think it ended up to being a 4 hours breakfast because we talked so much Germany and philosophy and all of that. And then all of a sudden COVID came and COVID propelled the business further. And then we've been very fortunate to be early on building a relationship with Sequoia. And then within Sequoia, we have the privilege to work with Doug Leone, who's the co-founder and today is still like CEO of Sequoia, half Italian.
And one of the goats in VC.
Right. Yeah, no. It's tough to work with Doug, I can tell that.
How is it, by the way? Because you were mentioning the breakfast with Peter Thiel.
Right.
How is it to meet these people?
Oh, you're very nervous, right? For the first 2 hours of our breakfast, Peter thought that the company was not called Trade Republic, but Tap Tap Trade. Because that was somewhat the slogan we had on the pitch deck. And so he was like, Tap Tap Trade. I was like, what is it with Tap Tap Trade? And I think he thought that's the name of the company. And so when I went home, I thought it was a horrible meeting, right? But then we got the term sheet, luckily. No, but I think we always tried... I think we always picked the investor with not the highest valuation. There would have been other people with higher valuations. We picked the people where we thought we got the best combination of who makes us leave our comfort zone. Because I want to build a worldwide champion. I want to build a company which is globally setting the standard for what it's doing. That's the bar, right? I want to win the Champions League. And if I lose the final, we lost everything, right? That's the mentality I'm trying to approach it. And then I want to have somebody who makes me really leave my comfort zone. And if you see videos of Doug, I think there's no doubt he makes you leave your comfort zone, for sure. Right? He's a tough guy and he's incredibly fast with numbers and doesn't take many companies on. So he's a winner himself. So he wants to do something where he wins. And so then it's a very tough relationship. And then sometimes he calls you Sunday morning, 8 a.m., 9 a.m. And then, Christian, what's the numbers? And then you have like this 30 minutes breakdown on the numbers on a Sunday morning all of a sudden without an appointment. Yeah, but that's what you get. And then these people are helping you obviously a lot to reset the bar for yourself and get access to other people.
And what did you get from these people? Like in terms of the way they think or anything like that, did you get something specific from working with them?
Well, so first of all, I think there's always a question, what benefit does a VC add, right? And there's many answers to this. I think there's no value add. I mean, eventually you need to, you need to be successful on your own. Like no VC will ever make your company more successful. I think that's a fairy tale. And the brutal truth of venture capitalism is that if you're not successful, these people are not picking up the phone. It goes very fast. But then again, what you learn from these people is definitely to operate at the highest level, to communicate at the highest level, to be never contempt, right? So I can tell you we have board meetings presenting 2024, great numbers, and then people ask me, Christian, how fast can we double that? It's the first question which immediately comes, right? 14 months, why is it not 9 months? Arbitrary example. You have this mindset of like, it's never enough, it always can be better, right? And you're always talking about the glass is half empty and how we can hire better people. And so these kind of winner's mindset that there's like always more, I think that's something which you then ingrain in your own DNA and thinking, right? Because you come to the board meeting with your numbers saying, well, that was a great year. And then you leave the room saying that was a shitty, it could have been much better, right? And I think that gives you this, I think, American sometimes way of thinking and appetite, which we sometimes may not have in Europe.
E in Europa abbiamo un altro grosso problema ed è proprio quello che Christian prova a risolvere con Trade Republic. Il pension gap, che sembra una roba difficile ma in realtà è semplice quanto terrificante. È la differenza tra il tuo ultimo stipendio e quello che prenderai di pensione ogni mese. Quindi se questa differenza è ampia ti sarà impossibile semplicemente mantenere lo stesso tenore di vita che avevi prima di andare in pensione. Il problema è che per come oggi il sistema pensionistico di paesi come Italia, Francia e Germania, quando io e te andremo in pensione questa differenza sarà enorme. Sentiamo cosa ne pensa Christian.
I need to say this very bluntly. It's a catastrophe and it's more urgent than climate change because the problems of the pension gap in Italy, Germany, Spain, France is going to bite us all quite quickly because it's going to happen in our generation. It is incredibly clear that our pension is not secure. I think there's this beautiful mathematical sentence which we're always saying in Germany. If you're 18 years today in Germany, you will contribute 45 years into the German pension system. And the pension you will get out of the system will not cover your housing cost and burden when you retire. So you're going to die in poverty if you don't do anything. Now, there's small starting points of changing that. The truth is, to transform a pension system will take 2 or 3 generations. And so our generation is in the middle, and the only way to solve it is to do something for yourself. And the good news is the younger you get, the more Gen Z you get, people have already understood this. And I think that's the backbone about why Trade Republic can grow so fast, right? Mm-hmm. And that makes me personally more confident that when we meet in 10 years again, the problem is hopefully a tiny bit smaller than it is today. And let's talk about another very uncomfortable fact. Many people ask me, what's my stance on AI? And yes, we do some AI at Trade Republic and it can be interesting, whatever. But the true story is that AI is likely going to introduce a new industrial revolution. And the truth is Europe is not going to participate in that industrial revolution. We already missed out. For AI, you need 3 things, which is processing power, which is data, and which is energy. And none of the processors are built here. We have one of the most rigid data protection laws in the world. I think the most rigid one. And energy is incredibly expensive. So AI is not going to happen in Europe. And so we're going to miss out, you and me, on this wealth creation. And so the only way to participate is capital markets, because now you can invest in the champions in America, Asia, wherever, and you can build and grow your wealth with it. And so basically I see it very positive, because if young people taking their life into their own hands, starting to invest, diversify the long term, and then through AI comes hopefully global wealth explosion or growth, we can meet in 10 years and we can say that the pension gap has narrowed.
Speriamo che questo succeda. Nel frattempo il pension gap in tutta Europa è di circa 1.900 miliardi di euro, una cosa come il 19% di tutto il PIL europeo. Christian però ha detto un'altra cosa molto importante. Secondo lui in Europa stiamo perdendo il treno dell'intelligenza artificiale. Gli Stati Uniti investono centinaia di miliardi. In Cina una startup sconosciuta come DeepSeek ha appena tirato fuori dal cappello un modello che supera addirittura quelli di OpenAI. E in tutto questo noi europei?
I think Peter said this. Whoever tries to predict the next 10 years of AI is either a fool or a liar, right? I think so. It's very hard to predict what happens here. But again, let's come back to logical arguments. It's to me not plausible why we should be a leader here. And I think if I now look over to America, without commenting on the politics of Trump, he's clearly putting AI on his agenda. He's clearly investing a lot of money, right? And usually if you connect then this money plus smart people, you end up with something, right? And I think what's next after software AI is hardware AI, meaning that we get robotics, true robotics. And if you look into the backbone of European growth, the German business model is basically the Mittelstand and all the manufacturing, right? And I think Northern Italy, Lombardy is the same, right? That's going to be disrupted by that. If you see the car industry, that's going to be disrupted by self-driving cars, right? And I think in these things, we're not really leading for now. So it's for me more plausible that we're going to miss out. That's plausible that they're going to win on this. But then again, hey, I mean, I had a conversation with somebody very important in America 2 years ago, and I was very negative. And then he said to me, after every period of regulation comes a period of deregulation. And so basically, again, I choose to be an optimist. I think we're already on the tipping point of regulation. So I think we're going to go into an era of deregulation. And I think that deregulation is going to make you and me in a much better position than maybe the people 10 years before us. And I think Europe has incredibly smart people, hardworking people, great culture, great place to live. So I see a lot of hope where we can maybe turn it around. Let's say we're maybe at the halftime 2-0 behind, 2-0 behind. But as you know, you can score 3 goals in the second half, huh?
E a proposito di Trump, tutti parlano della sua promessa di introdurre dazi sui prodotti europei e del suo investimento di 500 miliardi di dollari che ha fatto per far crescere l'ecosistema AI statunitense. Ma quale sarà l'impatto di tutto questo sulle start-up europee?
It seems to be that the deregulation in America is stimulating capital markets, right? 2 years ago, I was myself in Davos. This year, I couldn't participate because I'm with you guys.
It's better to be at the
of course,
media.
No, of course, yes. No, but I talked to many people who've been in Davos, right? And I think people who've been previously very critical are all of a sudden pretty optimistic. So I think like many people are bullish on America right now. People are usually maybe not so bullish on Trump, are now bullish on America, right? So I think you see on stock markets that I think we're going to see maybe a few good years to come, right? So I think that's for the stock market and for Trade Republic. Look, I studied political philosophy, so I have more opinions than I share. But I think if you look logically on this tariff model, right, I think he's trying to orient himself onto America before the 1920s. What many people don't know, in the 19th century, America had almost no income tax but high tariffs, right? So basically, I think the idea is you have tariffs, but then you're lowering the income tax, which in theory should stimulate internal consumption. So while you have more higher cost for Volkswagen to export a car to America, more people are buying cars because they have low income tax, right? So it's not a drive to the bottom necessarily, in theory. Now, politics is much more complicated than this, right? And the world is much more complicated than this. So I have no clue how it's going to turn out. But I just want to, because if you open a European newspaper, you always read, this is like stupid. I just want to offer an alternative way that maybe what they're doing is not entirely stupid. Maybe there's a version where it could be good even. What's definitely, I think, true is that America seems to look more on themselves, which is in the current state not good for Europe. So I think another motivator to look out more for us, because otherwise our interests are gone as much as Greenland is gone.
Quello che Christian sta dicendo è che negli anni 20 gli Stati Uniti hanno abbassato le tasse per aumentare consumi e investimenti e introdotto dei dazi sui beni importati dagli altri paesi per fare in modo che gli americani comprassero di più i prodotti statunitensi. L'obiettivo in realtà era molto semplice: creare crescita interna, quindi più posti di lavoro e più ricchezza per le aziende. E in realtà per un po' ci sono anche riusciti. Poi però anche gli altri paesi hanno risposto a questa strategia introducendo dazi anche sui beni americani. Quindi semplicemente tante aziende americane hanno finito per perdere gran parte dei propri clienti esteri. Ora, questo succedeva 100 anni fa.
Vediamo come finirà stavolta.
But I think what I'm always forgetting, if you talk to people outside Europe, right, everybody wants to live here.
Right, totally.
So everybody wants to live here, right? And so I think we just need to make sure that it's a place where people are living and not it's becoming a museum for those people to visit, right?
Or a vacation spot.
Yes. But every time I'm in Silicon Valley, I love it, right? I think the first week I would say, okay, I'm going to move here, right? But then after 2 weeks, I'm missing my Italian pizza, right? And no, it's actually true, right? So I couldn't live there, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's way deeper than it sounds.
Right.
It's not only food, it's like culture.
And that's a so unfair advantage, because that's the one thing nobody can replicate. And so in theory, it should be easier for us to replicate the tech ecosystem and the investment ecosystem and capital markets, basically, which is similar to America, because America cannot replicate our way of living in our 2,000-3,000 years of culture. What we need for this is a better flow of capital. We need a unified capital market. And many people, when they talk about the capital markets union in Europe, right, they talk about moving stock exchanges together and all of that. And that must happen. But first and foremost, what we need is European public investing into the stock market. There's so much untapped potential. And that's another side of the pension gap, right? Because we have a pension gap because people are not investing. And if people start investing, we're not only closing the pension gap, but we're as well making capital markets much better to fund innovation. So I think maybe hopefully with Trade Republic and many people investing their money, they're solving the problem two ways. And then I think we have some reasons to be optimistic and excited about Europe.
In altre parole, i primi investitori hanno sempre detto a Christian che l'Europa fosse un pessimo mercato perché nessuno investiva. Ma in realtà l'Europa ha il secondo PIL pro capite più alto al mondo e solo il 34% degli europei investe contro il 62% degli Stati Uniti. E ovviamente uno dei paesi dove la gente investe meno in Europa siamo proprio noi, con il 29%. Anche per questo uno dei paesi su cui Trade Republic punta di più è proprio l'Italia. Tanto che ora ti danno anche l'IBAN italiano e sono entrati in regime amministrato, che significa che pensano loro a tutti gli sbatti fiscali per i soldi che guadagni.
What's a typical work day like for you?
It's very rigid. Monday, we're meeting short before lunch in the executive team. It's 6 people. And then for 2 hours, it's very intense. We talk through the progress of the week, like what's ahead of us, what we need to get right this week. Then in the afternoon, we have so-called programs or fixes. So we do many things which are across teams, right? And then basically I bring all the team leader together. I'm in the room myself, right? And then I want them to align, trying to make sure that everybody got everything they need, right? Try to unblock problems. Because in the last 10 years, when I look into the biggest failures, it was mostly misalignment between teams. Then we go to Tuesday. We got, I think, 6 design reviews, 8 delivery reviews, so 14 meetings. We got design reviews where we talk about the new stuff we're building, and I'm approving almost every button we're doing, right? And we're talking about user experience. And then in the afternoon, we do delivery reviews where Thomas goes in because I cannot add value. And for every product we're building, we're talking every single ticket and why it's not moving. And then on Wednesday, if we figure out big problems like pricing strategy for a new product or vendor selection for a new infrastructure integration or architectural design for our multi-currency service, I don't know. Then we carve out on Wednesday 90 minutes of Thomas and my time, and we spend with the team 90 minutes in a room trying to solve that problem, right? And then Thursday, Friday, we get usual meetings.
Do you do one-to-ones?
No.
Okay, interesting.
No, I don't schedule usual one-on-ones like in a weekly basis, right? I think I can best serve people one-to-one. And then I have the privilege that in the important positions, I'm really trying to invest a lot into the personal relationship to people, right? So for example, today when walking here, Julian, our CMO and director of international markets, I told him like, look, why don't we just walk here? And then we just walked 1.5 hours here, right? And this 1.5 hours, we talked about everything but Trade Republic. And I think if you do this once in a while, once a quarter, it creates much deeper connections with humans than just doing a random one-on-one.
Tra l'altro questa cosa di non fare i one-to-one la dicono anche Brian Chesky e Jensen Huang di Nvidia. E non li facciamo neanche noi, chapeau. Comunque non abbiamo ancora parlato di una cosa molto importante. Qual è l'errore più grande che Christian ha fatto finora?
I'm doing many decisions and half of them are wrong. They cost you like 10 or 20 millions wrong. No, you're going home for Christmas and you're saying like, shit, this thing is really like blown in our face. It was so stupid to do it, right? So you get humbled every single day that you know nothing, and it's basically incredibly dangerous out there to make bad decisions, right? I think if you find a pattern about what have been consistently bad decisions, I think the first one is to do no decision. I would call myself a perfectionist, and I always want to have a game plan. So I think by now I try to act fast and do more decisions rather than less, right? And therefore accept some decisions are wrong. And I think the second one is we had this phase where we hired a lot of senior executives, people with like 10, 20 years of great CVs, Netflix, Airbnb. And somehow they brought a different DNA in the company. They made us a corporate. All of a sudden, these people are political, right? Because they don't know it otherwise from the field of companies they're coming from. And I think that was a very expensive mistake, which to revert took 2 years and was incredibly painful because you need to part ways with people and all of that. And I think by now, in all the important positions, we have people who are in their 5th year of employment. Again, Julian is like, I think 29, managing like a high 3-digit million marketing budget. And he never did marketing before, right? But basically we throw in people into these problems and then they all of a sudden start swimming and then they become really good at what they're doing. And it's mostly a genuine interest for the challenge and it's high motivation and it's a certain sort of intellectual capabilities. And I think I can tell this to everybody here watching and listening. I think the doors really open for young, bright people. And I think this is going to come more and more in the next 10 years.
You said that when you make a mistake, there's a risk of that mistake being worth like millions of euros, right? You're working 12-hour days, I imagine.
Yeah.
How do you turn off your mind?
Oh, no, you can't. We need to be professional athletes, right? And I think the best athletes of the world, they're, I think, mentally are simulating the free kick or whatever 100 times, right? They're doing this all the time, right? So I can tell you before I go having important meetings with investors or whatever, right? I'm trying before to simulate that meeting and I'm trying to prepare myself for negative outcome.
You were mentioning you're doing weightlifting rowing.
Rowing, right? No, but I always love sport, right? And then I was in the privileged position to talk to a lot of great leaders, from Silicon Valley, and they walk you through their routine, right? And all of a sudden you switch your mindset, and then you treat yourself like a professional athlete, right? So I don't drink, I don't smoke, I eat extremely healthy, I work out twice a day or once a day, morning, evening, right? I try to watch out, do enough break times and holidays as well, right? That's part of it as well, right? Just working all in doesn't make sense. And then all of a sudden you kind of come up with it together with coaches and mental things, right? But I really think you need to see yourself as a professional.
E a parte considerare te stesso come un atleta professionista, sentiamo qual è il consiglio di Christian per chi vuole lanciare una startup.
First and foremost, you just need to be freaking honest to you, because I see many people lying to themselves, right? So I think the truth is, I would say in Germany, if you go out and if you're like 2, 3, 4 beers, maybe in Italy it's wine, and you go home and you're staring at the roof, right? Do you really believe that you're solving a problem? Do you really believe that you're solving this problem in a novel way, right? So Trade Republic, I did believe that the pension gap exists. Nobody could prove me against this, and I knew that if we can make it commission free, it's going to be innovative. So I knew if those two statements are logically true, I will be somewhat successful. And successful were like 100,000 customers and employing 20 employees, right? You need to search for something where you feel deeply invested into those two answers and think that's it, right? And then I think just keep on going, never give up, because it's never easy. And just take my example for it, right? It took literally 6 years to come to that point, right? And it was never obvious.
Christian, grazie mille. It's been a huge pleasure. Thank you so much.